So I am super curious. Do you have a book within you, but you're not quite sure like how to get it either out of your head onto paper or even out of your heart and connected into your soul from that sense of like, I know this idea, but how do I get it out? And so this is what I want to explore in this new online course that I'm offering, which is called How to Write a Next Level Book. Now, what do I even mean by that? What is a next level book? So I feel what a next level book is, in my mind, it is not just something born of the logic of the left brain. It is something born from us accessing whole brain states of consciousness or even whole body states of consciousness through meditation, breath work, prayer, fasting. There's so many ways to go into super connected states of consciousness. And when you start doing that and writing from that place of super connection, then you get a next level book. It's kind of guaranteed. And so, what I found in my own life is I downloaded, received 80,000 words of a book in 9 days. And I'm not saying that because I want to show off about it, because I also believe that you can do the exact same thing. I can share with you all the tools and techniques of how I approached that and prepared myself to bring that through. And actually, a lot of it was me leaning into my spiritual practice, my tools, and my techniques that I know connect me in. And obviously, we might all have slightly different tools and techniques. But if you don't have techniques, I can show you the ones that work for me and work for a lot of people that I've worked with over 16 years or so as a spiritual teacher. And once we're using those and we're then going from that expanded state and receiving the downloads for the book from that expanded state, and as much as possible writing from that expanded state, or even not even writing. This might sound a little bit crazy, but these days I do not write as in physically write out my first drafts. I speak it into my phone. And so I'm in meditation space, channeling space. I'm open and the words are pouring through. And if the words are not pouring through, then I just wait. I sit in my prayer space, my meditation space. I wait for my muse, for my inspiration to reignite and for the next set of words to come through. This is not only how I write. Look at how Eckhart Tolle talks about his writing. Look at other authors, and they all speak about finding the 0 point in some way and then writing from that place. It is not actually all that hard. In fact, it's surprisingly simple if you lean into your techniques or you just learn some new ones along with me. So, we're going to go on a journey. It is a 12-week journey altogether. In the first 4 weeks, we're going to look at receiving the seeds of the idea, and clarifying, like, okay, this is the seed that I want to birth a book from. Once we get clear on that, we then expand that out into, okay, what's the chapter overview? Like, what is the structure? Because if we just open and pour through whatever comes, there might be some amazing things, but if we don't have a structure, believe me, it is a nightmare to try and sequence it into order. I know, because that's how I wrote my first book back in my 20s, my first nonfiction book, and it was such a headache to just get it into the structured sequence that it needed to be in, to take people on a journey. So once you know that, and once you start feeling into like, okay, this is how I can do it, these are the steps, I want to take people from this point to this point. So what are the logical steps that I need to take them through one by one? Overview, not getting stuck in the detail. This is like Horus overview. We are an eagle or a falcon flying high above the land, and we're seeing the big picture vision for the whole book. Then Once we get clear on that overview, we then swoop down closer to the terrain, not super fine detail. Super fine detail would be we're writing every single line. The next level of zooming in is like, okay, we now know that we're going to have a chapter on such and such a subject. What are the different pieces that I need to cover in that if I'm going to do justice to that subject in relation to what I'm speaking about? So again, you get another overview, which then gives you like a guide. It's like an overview sense of like, okay, I need to hit all these points. Is there a logical order that I can put those points in? So it is again taking people on a journey through the individual chapter. And obviously within that, there might also be questions of like, do I need a meditation? Do I need a tool or a technique or a practice? What do I need to teach them in this chapter that's going to take them one more step further to the goal, whatever the goal might be for you? And so we then go from, okay, we've worked out our different steps and pieces. Great. We then need to find, or you need to find, what is your way of discovering the flow state of writing? Now I can show you my ways. And over the years, I've been writing for years and years. And over different times, I've been using different techniques and practices. Meditation at times, breath work at times, trance dance, ecstatic dance at times, tantra at times. So there's been these different ways in which I have opened my own energy body through my practice and then flowed from that into writing, creation of new content. And I can show you how I do it. And I'm going to give you lots of different ways and tools and approaches to it. You then go away and find which are the tools and techniques that best work for you. And it might be based on what I've suggested, or it might be based on you reflecting on like, okay, what works for me? What gets me into a whole brain state? What gets me into an expanded, super connected state of consciousness? And how do I personally write from that place of super connection? It is an art in a way, and I believe it's actually a lot simpler than people might make out. And I believe that a lot of us actually are doing it already. We may just not be fully conscious of how we're opening to let the words pour through. Now, if you already know how to let the words pour through, you're already at an advantage of stepping into this course and then following the steps so that we're then preparing for the challenge. So the challenge is we do our 4 weeks of preparation. You then have 4 weeks where you are going to write 50,000 words in 1 month. Let's take a breath into that. Now, when I first heard about this challenge, this is a challenge called NaNoWriMo. And it's something that an American author came up with. He's a novelist, and he set himself the challenge of writing a 50,000 word novel in 1 month. And when I heard about that as an idea, I was like, fucking hell, like that's a lot of words and that's a big ass challenge to take on. Now, I took the challenge and I did not know as I was taking it, like I took the challenge in part because honestly, I did not know if I could meet the challenge, you know, like succeed. So I decided to give it a try. 2 weeks in to the 4-week challenge, I knew that I was going to hit 50,000 words because I was reading my word count. And if you break it down, 1 month divided by 30 days, 1 month, 50,000 words divide that by 30 days, and you get 1,666 words that you need to write each day in order to hit your word count of 50,000 by the end of the month. So this is what I did. And I picked up along that way a number of other different ways of writing which I'd not tried before, and they were kind of edgy because they were not an approach I was used to trying. But I tried it out in part because this guy behind NaNoWriMo, National Writers Month is the long version. NaNoWriMo is the acronym. But by the way, I'm speaking about fiction book, but this applies completely to non-fiction content as well. So you can set yourself the same challenge of, okay, I am going to try and write 50,000 words in 1 month. I'm going to hit my 1,666 words each day in order to hit that word count by the end of my 30th day. Now, if you don't hit 50,000, that's okay as well. You know, you might find that you write 25,000 words by the end of that month. That is 25,000 words closer to your end goal of writing your first draft. That's the goal. That's the goal for this month. It's not the perfect finished book. No, you need more time for that. Writing takes time. Let's be honest about that. And yet, what I've found is I've found ways in which to kind of crank out a first draft in 1 month. And what I mean by that is I am not working all hours of every day for that month on it. No, I am working for maybe 1 to maximum 2 hours a day on letting all the words come through. And if I do that, I easily hit that word count. In fact, I very often go way over the 1,600, the 1,666. So I can show you my ways, and they are not just my ways because it works for me. There are other authors in the world that are writing their books in this way. I learned from some of them, and so I want to also share some of my gold that I've taken on and been inspired by other authors. And I want to also show you how I get inspired by my muse. So for me, this is my muse, or this is one of my muses. This is Isis. And as you probably know, she's from the Egyptian lineage. She's a freaking awesome goddess. I love her to bits. I work with her a lot. And so when I poured through 9 days of content, it was also from working with her. Now, obviously, you might be like, well, I don't want to pour some stuff through from an Egyptian goddess. Thank you very much. However, I'm really inspired by this lineage, and I'm really inspired by X, Y, and Z. And I think actually this might be my muse. So we're also going to be helping you find your muse. And that could be you connecting into your higher self. It could be you connecting in to the one source out of which we've all come. If you believe in God, you could connect to God. If you believe in Goddess, I can show you ways to connect with the Goddess if you don't know them already. I imagine a lot of you already know because you're already on some kind of a spiritual path or some kind of a personal development path. If you're working in mind, body, spirit in some way, if you're working in personal development world in some way, then if you're ticking one or both of those boxes, then I can help you to write your book. I have 2 bestsellers now that have launched in the last 2 years. One of them came out almost around this time 2 years ago. It was recognized by Margot Anand as a very potent book that was pouring through tantric teachings from the Egyptian lineage stream. Now, for me personally, there was something huge in receiving a testimonial, an endorsement from Margot Anand. She is a 1,000,000-copy best-selling author. She wrote the book The Art of Sexual Ecstasy, which is an absolute tantric classic. So to hear her vouching for and recommending this book was really like, oh my God, like I read her book when I was 21 years old and I was super inspired by it. And in fact, it was one of the things that made me realize that I was spontaneously, by accident, no accident, discovering Tantra. When you birth your book, and I can help you, like let me help you to midwife or doula this book into existence. I can be there supporting you along the way, giving you advice, giving you suggestions, recommendations. You're also going to be with your peer group, so everyone's going to be writing alongside of you as well. I am also taking the challenge with you as well. Obviously, I've done it before, so I'm not perhaps quite so daunted, but I also am going to birth a new book or a first draft whilst everyone else is also birthing their first drafts. And then we take that rough, unpolished gem, and in the final 4 weeks of our journey together, we then start tidying it up and polishing the diamond. First draft is always rough. Pretty much always. Unless you're a genius, unless you're an absolute genius, you will very naturally have multiple drafts through which you rewrite, you tidy up, you clean, and you clarify the message that you're trying to get across to people. And sometimes that starts on the level of throwing out bits that are a bit too waffly and, you're saying one thing in one paragraph. In the next paragraph, you're basically saying the same thing in a slightly different way. So then you start looking at like, okay, can I condense this so that people don't get bored whilst they're reading it, so that I'm clear and concise and on point? Because obviously the best books in the world, the ones that we read that have been, brought to us by amazing publishers from all around the world, are the ones that have been written and rewritten and rewritten and rewritten again. I go through at least 7 drafts, 8 drafts before a book is ready. And honestly, I could potentially even do more than that, and I would get a better book out of it. So I really want to show you like how to edit on the level of paragraphs and chapters, because you can also edit in a kind of overview way where you're removing chunks rather than getting stuck into the nitty-gritty of like sentence editing. We throw out chunks if they are repetitive or unnecessary, or we condense say 2 paragraphs into one, because they're basically both saying the same thing. And if we take the best from one and the best from another, we get an even better sentence. So this is where the more kind of logical left brain part comes in, is when we go into the edit. When we're in first draft pour through, we don't want the logical left brain getting in the way too much. What I mean by that is we want to allow the super creative right brain to pour forth its wisdom without trying to dam the flow too much and without getting too analytical on what's pouring through. And we do that and we give ourselves room to almost kind of like be a bit messy in the first draft, because every single first draft in the world is a bit messy. And so once we get on board with that idea of like, okay, I'm going to do something and it's not going to be perfect. And when I take it then into the edit in the final 4 weeks, then I'm going to start tidying it up. Then I'm going to start polishing it stage by stage. So from the level of chapter and paragraph, we analyze and think like, okay, is this good? Is it not? Make little notes. We have our little red pen, almost as though we're critiquing someone else's work. Like, oh, this is not so clear. Maybe needs a bit more clarity here. Or this paragraph is a repetition of that other one. Should we chuck them both out? Or can you condense? These kind of things. Then we start honing in even more on line by line editing. And I want to show you within that how to line edit like a ninja. You know, it's like we have our sword, and the sword is the discernment of, okay, what can I cut out of this sentence so that the sentence itself becomes super clear? How do I make it clearer and clearer and clearer, you know, like more and more concise? And that might be removing words. It might be sometimes changing one word for another one, because there's another word that gets it even more super clear than the word that we first got in first draft stage. So we line edit like a ninja with our sword. And then we get to the final stage of the polishing. And this is what Thoth is the god of writing. He's awesome. He's an amazing ally to have if you're a writer. God of writing from Egypt, he knows how to write books, believe me. And part of his teaching, his message is, remember always the power, the absolute, unbridled, incredible, next level power that is in every single word. You know, like take a breath into that for a moment. Just feel how that lands. I feel like in our world today, we can take words for granted. And yet, we are spelling, creating spells, creating magic through the power of the individual words we are selecting out of the near infinite array of options. You know, like at a time right now where you could AI into existence an entire book and almost not need to write it yourself. What if we go the other way? What I mean by that is, what if we, instead of leaning into AI use, ChatGPT and all that kind of stuff, what if we instead lean into connecting in, dialing up to the highest connection to greater wisdom, to higher consciousness that we can possibly dial into. And then we bring a book through from there. Like I say that and it's making me emotional. You know, we can co-author books with the divine. I believe that very strongly because I have been doing that for years. Not only in the last few years of publishing, but for years I've been finding the ways to expand consciousness and then write, pour forth the power of the word from there. So I would love to teach you how I do it. I would love to inspire you to find the ways that best work for you. I want to give you tools, techniques, writing prompts, support. I'm going to be there in the trenches with you as we're all writing our first drafts together. If we get stuck, you can reach out to me or your buddy. You're going to have a buddy in the training who's going to be right there also supporting you. You have a peer group there also supporting you. You have the divine in whatever form you believe in supporting you because they want, you know, more spiritual consciousness on the earth. So of course they want to support you. How do we tap in? That is the big question. And how do we then, from that tapped in place, bring through the book or the books that our soul is here to bring through? You know, like I feel at this time right now personally, it's not a thing of like, oh, let's work out how we're going to make a book that sells millions by optimizing the words that we're using. Like, let's forget that. What if you come instead from the place of, can I write what is in my highest soul alignment, what is in my greatest and deepest passion? Because surely, if you're coming from that place, rather than coming from what's going to sell the most books, actually you in your soul aligned passion becomes the most magnetic thing, you know? And just to share my personal journey with that, 2 years ago, Egyptian Tantric Secrets came out. Now, 2 years later, I am stewarding a group of amazing students through the body of work that I downloaded, working very closely with Isis. I'm stewarding a group of amazing beings to learn this content so that they can then start going out and teaching it with the world. And I look around at the fruit, like I feel somehow like I put the book out, and I don't want to bullshit you. It wasn't as though it was like a 1,000,000 copy bestseller or anything. It was an Amazon bestseller. I can also show you how to become an Amazon bestseller. It's not rocket science. And yet, the fruit, like the real fruit, the tangible fruit, is that for the last 2 years, amazing humans have been coming into my life because they've come across my book, they've read it, they've been inspired, and they want to go deeper. That is exactly the same as what can happen for you if you write from your soul passion. And now perhaps there might be some ways that we can find the soul passion and keyword it up a little bit so it reaches more people. Great. If we can do that, fantastic. But more important than the keywords, I feel personally, is let's bring through the thing our soul is here to share with the world, If you were going to die in 2 years from now, what is the message you would most want to share with the world? Because literally, this could be your legacy, This could be one of the things that you leave behind that inspires people even beyond your own life. Isn't that crazy to think of that possibility? And yet I'm looking back at ancient Egyptian texts that were written thousands of years ago, and I am profoundly inspired by them. And they fuel my inspiration for birthing or rebirthing ancient wisdom, ancient knowledge, sacred knowledge, from whatever lineage most inspires you. Or perhaps it's even like a weave of multiple lineages. And that then becomes your unique delivery. It's like no one is going to write your book. Don't use ChatGPT. Fuck that. What I mean by that is you connected to the divine can bring through something truly next level. You don't need ChatGPT to help you, You might use it for a little brainstorming. Okay, great, that's fine. It's loud, It's not like, don't touch it. But what's going to be next level is you dialing up, doing the real dial up, not the internet dial up, but the dial up to what you believe in. And then you bring something, pour it forth from there. That's some next level stuff. Like, that is a book that I want to read because I know it's come from a profound space of connection. So, I think you have got the point, and either you are feeling the yes, in which case you are super welcome to join us on this journey. And if you're a little bit like, yeah, I don't know, not so sure, then this is probably not for you. In which case, thank you anyway for watching this. And perhaps just this video on its own is inspiration enough for you to go out and write the book you have been born to write, or one of the books you are here to write in this lifetime. So, that's my little prayer, is that every one of us starts tapping in and starts bringing through the next level books that are going to help steward us into the next potential levels of consciousness that can become normalized in the world. You know, think about the time we're in. Yoga, normalized. Meditation, normalized. Zoom back 60, 70 years and everyone that was doing that stuff was a weirdo, you know? Now you go to a gym and it's right there. Breath work, becoming normalized. Dance, ecstatic dance, becoming normalized. It's in a process, you know? And you, if you're a mind, body, spirit teacher, if you're a personal development guru, you are at the front line of the transformation of consciousness. Does that not get you emotional, you know? Like, does that not touch something where it's like, wow, I have been given a precious opportunity in this life through the power of my word. I can inspire tens, hundreds, thousands, millions. And it doesn't need to be millions. Like, I think in some ways, like, we have this marker of, well, you know, the real thing is if you become a 1 million copy bestseller. But actually, I don't know how many people my books have touched. Perhaps they have touched 2,000 people. Perhaps they have touched 5,000 people. And of those people, some of them have had a life-changing experience as a result of it. So is it a numbers game in terms of how many books you've sold? Or is it more a question of, can I inspire a few people, a few hundred, a few thousand? And if that is the lasting legacy of your life, if the day that you die, you have touched the hearts of 2,000 people, is that not quite an amazing thing? And of course, if you touch 5,000, 10,000 more, wow. If you're going to take anything from this video that you've been watching, my recommendation, suggestion, advice would be write from your soul. Pour through a next level book, because the world needs next level books at this time. And do it in recognition that you outpouring this offering from your passion is going to touch all the people that it's meant to touch over a period of time. And it will come to flower in the fullness of time. So on my side, I feel like in this last 3 months, something bloomed where I was like, oh wow, this is the fruit of writing a book. I have mentorships that are full. And I every day give thanks to Isis for that and to the books that have burst through me so far. So, go write. And if you're still wondering, okay, I need some more guidance, then come join the training if it's calling you. Would love to be with you on this journey. Let's all go write a freaking awesome book all at the same time. Because we can. Because we all can. So, if that calls to you, I will see you for the Next Level Book online course training.